when I was asked about losses on our side, I said these are not important. The results and how you act is important. So it would be not very correct to talk about losses, means numbers, etc. Means I'll give a detailed kind of an answer on this. You see in a match, suppose you go into a football match and you win 3-2. He scored 2 goals and you scored 4 goals. So that's an even-sided match. But suppose you go on in a test match, cricket test match, and you win by innings defeat. Then there's no question of how many wickets and how many balls and how many players. It's an innings kind of a defeat. If you look at this particular statement, I, as a scholar, as an army officer, draw 2 important derivatives, conclusions out of this particular statement. One is that war is a finite kind of an entity. That means there is politics, and when you fail in that politics, then you resort to use of force. So then there is war. And when war ends, politics, in the sense negotiations again start. So we have seen that in 71 war, that before that, there's politics, and then there's a 14-day war, and then again you go back to Shimla negotiations. So this is a definite end point and a start point to this activity of war. I think this particular paradigm which Clausewitz has postulated, or the conclusion which we have drawn, is entirely wrong. Today, war is a continuation of 5 C's, which I say as cooperation, competition, confrontation, conflict, and combat. That's war. In a one particular sequence, they continue happening. And the state tries to include any kind of instrument which is available to it for achievement of its political objectives, that is diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. You've recently seen this war on trade and tariff, actually. That's basically for attainment of political objectives. So, but this is what I said, in Operation Sindoor also, war and politics was happening as a parallel kind of a phenomenon. And it was being exercised also through communication, which I made a mention initially, both direct and indirect communication. So, second important conclusion, what I draw from the statement which I initially said, that war is a continuation of policy by other means, is that war is a rational decision. That means, and I also spoke about reason when I said about government takes a rational decision about war. And this takes the decision when it is exhausted all its other instruments of power. So, but then the important question comes in, this whole start point of this particular war was this Pahalgam terror attack. So is terrorism a rational act of warfare? I don't think that's a rational act, because terrorism has no defined logic. It has no politico-military end state. Terrorism is a means and an end in itself. Terrorism is a form of warfare that defines rationality. This is because the terrorist doesn't have anything to lose. He's a non-state actor. So he doesn't have a state. So if he doesn't have a state, he's not worried about territory, people, or the ideology, which form the 3 important constituents of a state. So this is terrorism absolutely irrational if it is happening in a standalone mode. But what happens when, there is about state-sponsored terrorism? Is this rational? Think that, this seems to be a rational decision when state is employing terrorism as an instrument to achieve political objectives. And say so it's a reasoned kind of a decision which state takes. And so as our adversary is concerned, he's taken the decision that to bleed India by 1,000 cuts. And when I say that this has been a state policy, this I'm not saying. If you go and look at the literature on issues, you'll find Peter Chalk, Kristen Fair, who have cited the former Director Generals of ISI, explicating this particular strategy as to how they will bleed India by 1,000 cuts. And this particular doctrine is found in various studies in Pakistan, Staff College, Quetta, etc. So this is the normal talk which happens in Pakistan. And of course, officially we know in the 1965, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto declared a 1,000-year war against India when he addressed the United Nations Security Council. And probably Ziaul Haq gave form to this particular doctrine of 1,000 years war. And someone added that you should add this 1,000 cut into it. And similar kind of venom was spewed by General Asim Munir against India and Hindus. Speech just few days or weeks before what happened in Pahalgam. So, since this is a rigid decision, it can be also, I believe, that retracted because now Pakistan is faced with a different kind of a prospect that he faces military action in case we find terror happening against us. And also, we said that we'll have water as well as, this thing will not flow together. So we have kind of raised the bar. We have connected terror to water, and we have drawn out the new lines for military operations against terror. Sometimes I feel this particular policy also got accentuated after Pakistan acquired nuclear weapons, and they tried to exploit this stability-instability paradox. That's nuclear weapons will provide stability, strategic stability between the two nations, and below that, this terrorism can contain. But of course, what India has done now is there are now two red lines. Between these two red lines, it's opened up the space for conventional operations. So that's a major change which has happened after Sindhu. Let me talk about rationality once again in the context of Operation Bunyan al-Marsus, and which I said, I've said once, twice earlier that in this whole business of warfare or use of force, the military people are the ones who are most rational, because we understand that, war and warfare is very, very unpredictable. And we also probably understand the consequences of war. So that I think is important. So although lost by Pakistan on 10th of May at about 1 a.m., its aim was to get down India to its knees in 48 hours. Multiple attacks were lost. And in some manner, they have escalated this conflict, which we had actually hit only terrorist targets, but also into the military domain. From their perspective, it would have been rational in the sense they would have said that you use military means to hit these targets. But it was also rational on their part, operation which they thought they'll continue for 48 hours, folded up in about 8 hours. And on 10th, then they picked up the telephone and said they wanted to talk. And I think that the rationale behind this the realization coming in stem from two facts. That one is they must have assumed that if they continued this mode, they're likely to lose much more. So hence they picked up the telephone. And second thing, since they had stuck us at multiple fronts, they still did not have the benefit of understanding what they had stuck. So they must have thought they must have stuck, and hence there's time to talk now. And if they don't, they'll tend to lose both. So these were the two factors which would have made them to take, but it's only after say 1 or 2 days they would have realized that all their kind of attacks which they had launched against us had not fortified, and they had all kind of failed. And so I think this is what had happened.